are coming up on Night of Champions. Night of Champions to us here in the United States is going to be Day of Champions, but essentially at the end of the day, it's nothing of champions. The pay-per-view PLE that's coming on this weekend, well, it is titled Night of Champions, the 11th time a PLE has been titled Night of Champions, but without doing my research and without doing my homework, I can justifiably say, just knowing the card, this has got to be the least championship-heavy Night of Champions in the history of this event. I attended a Night of Champions way back ago in Buffalo, New York, and every single match on the card, I think 8 of the 9 matches, if I wasn't mistaken, were championship matches. It's a night in which the advertise as all the championships on the line. And if there's ever a place to do it, it's kind of Saudi Arabia, because of the fact that we know that they don't do the whole 4-match cards out there. They do the 3, 4, 5-hour pay-per-views. The first ever pay-per-view out in Saudi Arabia was the Greatest Royal Rumble, which had a 50-man Royal Rumble and still 9 other matches on the card.
I think it's still going, too. I think it's still going.
Yeah, I mean, that was like the longest single pay-per-view I had ever, and it's crazy because that was coming off like 2 weeks after WrestleMania. It was a very long event. I think it started at 1 o'clock here Eastern time. It ended at like 6 p.m. Or later Eastern. It was a very long event. Like I said, if you have a 50-man Battle Royal Rumble style on your card, so that's an easy 90 minutes event. And then you have 9 other matches to go with it, including Roman and Brock in a cage, as well as many others. Yeah, it's going to be a long event. So Saudi Arabia, they don't get a lot of events. They're okay with events being long. Hence, this pay-per-view itself has the most matches since WrestleMania's. It's got 6 matches on the card, but at the end of the day, only 2 of them are for championships. And I know we kind of talked about this briefly of like, why?
Hold on. I got to stop you there real quick. I technically, yes, you're right. But wouldn't you consider the King and Queen of the Ring kind of like a crown, like a championship? Wouldn't it be 4 out of 6?
Well, I mean, yes, those are important things, right? They're not championships in the traditional way. And again, as you just talked, right, we have King and Queen of the Ring. The third Queen of the Ring will be crowned. The 24th King of the Ring in WWE history will be crowned. And as I was kind of just alluding to, right, this event we talked about in previous weeks leading up to it and wondering why it wasn't just called King and Queen of the Ring PLE. And now as we get closer to the event, that question is even more apparent because of the fact that, okay, it's Night of Champions because it seems like championship matches overall are going to outnumber King and Queen of the Ring matches, but that's not the case anymore. 2 King and Queen of the Ring matches, 2 championship matches. You might as well call this thing King and Queen of the Ring and give that part of the event the top billing. So it didn't need to be Night of Champions anyway, but then the fact that it's not even really the Night of Champions makes it even more silly in this name. And I was doing some of the research, when it comes to the championships that WWE has, and yeah, they have a lot of them with the women's IC belt and the women's US belt and all these other belts that go along with, brand separation. No Raw specific championships are being defended. That's a lot of them. That's Gunther, right? That's Becky. That's the New Day. That is a lot of championships over there on Monday Night Raw that are not being defended. 3 championship matches are being defended on SmackDown. And I know back in the day, and still to this day, you call the SmackDown the night before a pay-per-view like Super WrestleMania SmackDown or Royal Rumble SmackDown to kind of tie it into the pay-per-view. And, well, they should have called it Night of Champions SmackDown because SmackDown actually has more championships on the line from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia than it does this pay-per-view itself. In fact, so far, as of this recording, 2 of them have been defended. We have a new United States champion in Julia defeating Zelina Vega, and the Street Profits retained against the Wyatt Six. And as I said, we were recording this right now. Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax are in a last woman standing match. But, I mean, should this just be King and Queen of the Ring? This is, again, we've talked about this before. WWE does not know how to market and advertise and promote and make legitimate the King and Queen of the Ring part of these events. I don't know why. It's like the Royal Rumble. It's easy to do. You got to just give it meaning, which they have. Winners go on to SummerSlam. Should this just be the King and Queen of the Ring? I don't understand. What do you think the thought behind making this Night of Champions was?
Yeah, it's very odd. I mean, for me personally, the name that actually makes the most sense, and it would roll off the tongue better than saying King and Queen of the Ring pay-per-view or PLE, is why don't we call it the Crown Jewel? Because you have two crowns being, up for grabs. And obviously there's, championships along the line, on the line as well, and other singles matches, whatnot. I would have called it Crown Jewel, but obviously that's going to be.
Well, Crown Jewel is going to happen in Australia. And
yeah, that's Perth. Yeah.
That's already its own thing. And
but it would make more sense, though. It'd make more sense.
The Crown Jewel, right, is created. That's a whole separate championship belt. You want to talk about Night of Champions? That's a championship belt that is like similar to King and Queen of the Ring, where it's something that is a championship belt, but it is given once a year, and you don't get to really defend it. Unless I guess you hold your respective championship.
Here's my issue with the name Night of Champions, and it was kind of to your point just a moment ago. Why isn't every match not a championship match? Like, it should all be championship matches all the way through. That's why it's called Night of Champions. Yeah, and every title's online.
We have the people over there. For example, Rhea Ripley and Raquel Rodriguez in a street fight could easily probably be on SmackDown. I understand they're Raw people, but it could be on SmackDown in place of the Nia Jax versus Tiffany Stratton championship last woman standing match being on the PLE, right? The SmackDown Tag Team Championships could be on the PLE itself instead of, sorry to say, but Karrion Kross and Sami Zayn. And listen, I want that match on the pay-per-view too. But I'm just saying, like, they really just create the name for the pay-per-view and then didn't really have the plan. I do understand there was one other championship match that was made for this card that got scrapped last minute, which was Dominic Mysterio. He's out with injury, so he's not going to be defending his championship against AJ Styles. But I guess, like, the caveat is, as I just mentioned, a match that probably wasn't going to be on this card is now in there. So while I want to see it on the card, I also know as of a week ago, it probably wasn't going to be on the card. And that's Sami Zayn and Karrion Kross. So when we break down this card, we'll start there. Sami Zayn, Karrion Kross on this event. People are very excited. Whatever backdoor way you got to get Karrion Kross on a PLE, we got it. Are you excited to see Karrion Kross on a PLE? Do you think that this is because fans wanted it, or just kind of like a backdoor way because Dominic Mysterio's injury?
I think it's a combination, honestly. I think that was something that's been discussed. I feel like they had to have discussed it because, the merch sales speak for itself. Anytime he's on main event, people are posting online the videos of his entrance and how the crowd reaction is. Like, WWE, the whole TKO group, they'd be naive and stupid if they didn't realize what Karrion Kross is doing right now, and he's getting a lot of eyeballs on him that aren't on Raw or SmackDown or normal PLEs. So yeah, I mean, it's a combination. I do think Mysterio's injury with the IC Championship not on the line now, that definitely helps. But I feel like it was probably coming at some point. I felt like if the IC title was still on the line, I do think we would have seen this match on Monday Night Raw the following night, or 2 nights from now, 2 nights from Saturday. So that's, regardless whether it's on a PLE or on Monday Night Raw, to me, you're still getting that feel that it's not main event. Like, it's not like dark matches and things like that. So I'm excited for it. Honestly, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say Karrion Kross is going to win the match. I'm just going. I'm feeling it right now, man. I really feel like this
needs to win the match too. You know what I mean? Because that's part of this kind of story of him being like, know what's going on, him being in the back, you know what I mean, and kind of being in Sami Zayn's ear and other people's ear. And I think to give him some legitimacy is to have him win this match in this.
Yeah. To me, if they don't, and Sami wins it like very clean, and it's just like, it almost, to me, it's like, that would make me feel like, okay, they're just using Karrion Kross as like almost like enhancement talent, at that point, which that's not what they should be doing. If they're reading the room right, they would, like you just said, it would make too much sense not to have Karrion Kross win. You got to have him win. Like, that just, like, it's, to me, it's stupid if you don't, but we'll see what happens. I mean, Sami Zayn doesn't need this win. Karrion Kross needs it. Sami can lose the match. And even if Karrion does it in a way that's, shady or Scarlett gets involved or something, like, it's not going to hurt Sami, but it'll help Karrion. So Karrion needs this win more than Sami Zayn. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think Karrion Kross pulls it out.
One match that I think also was kind of created that's not a championship match. It was probably going to be somewhat affiliated with a championship match. And that is the women's tag team champions, Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan. I guess they were probably going to be defending those belts in some capacity, maybe, because we still have Raquel Rodriguez on this card. She's now facing Rhea Ripley, thanks to Liv Morgan's injury she suffered a couple weeks ago against Kairi Sane when she dislocated her shoulder. So that match is essentially scrapped, the tag team championship match, and now we just have Rhea and Raquel in a street fight. I think this is going to be probably an easy win for Rhea Ripley. And this is one that, I mean, I'm very curious. I think this is going to be a summer where Rhea gets back in the world title picture. I could see her going into SummerSlam, going for the actual women's championship, or maybe even into Evolution. We kind of forget about that one in between. But this is a match that I guess my question is in this match, the only women's match on this card, or well, actually, correction, there's two women's match on this card, but the only one that's not for the Queen of the Ring. Do you see any kind of something that will help build us towards the PLE that we have in 2 weeks that we currently have no matches for, and that's Evolution? Like any kind of returns from a women's side of thing, any kind of involvement?
Yeah, actually, I was just thinking about that as you were laying out that match with Rhea and Raquel. I honestly, it's a straight fight, so obviously, no DQ. I honestly think Raquel is in the same boat as Sammy, where she doesn't, or as I'm sorry, Rhea Ripley is in the same boat as Sammy, where I don't think she needs to win this match to like lose any momentum. I think what'll happen is I think Raquel Rodriguez wins this match, but I also see it happening via Roxanne Perez, helping her out. And then this is where it leads to the Evolution side of things. Roxanne Perez steps in for Liv Morgan, and the tag titles will be defended. Rhea and an opponent to be named. Which honestly, who knows? It could be Nikki Bella at this point because we don't know what's going to happen with Nikki. Nikki was supposed to be with Liv Morgan, and with that, it looks like they were setting that up, and obviously Liv's unfortunate injury kind of derailed that. So I could see something where this is how you tie it all together. Raquel wins against Rhea in that street fight because of Roxanne, and then Rhea wants to get her hands on Roxanne, but then they make it they make it into a Roxanne Perez is filling in for Liv Morgan, and then Raquel Rodriguez as the tag champs versus Rhea Ripley and Nikki, returning Nikki Bella for the tag team championships. That's what I could see.
All right. Another place where I see we might see some returns, some involvement. We're talking about another, I don't really know if we call this Bloodline Civil War anymore. I don't really know turmoil within the Bloodline because the Bloodline now is taking so many different turns now. Yeah. It's like, it's like when you watch like a good horror movie and then you're on like the 8th installment and you're like, is Freddy Krueger even in this one? But we got Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa for the United States Championship. And yes, we have, some of the Loa is out there, right? Still out for a little bit, and we're waiting for their return. There's also some family members who were expecting to make their debuts. So tell me a little bit what you see happening in Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa.
Honestly, you just teed it up for me. Well, I believe I might be saying his name wrong, but is it like it's like Hikaleo or Hikaleo? I forget his name.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I know what you're referring to.
Yeah, he's a monster. He's like 6'8", I think, 6'9". They've been talking about him, showing up at some point, and I could see him actually costing Jacob Fatu the match where Solo wins the title. That's where I could see it.
Well, and you always kind of wonder because obviously we keep getting people kind of joining back. Obviously, we just saw Jeff Cobb come out and help out, Solo Sikoa. So you wonder, like, more family members coming out, which side are they going to be on? Is one going to be on Jacob's side, one on Solo's side, stuff like that. I know we still have people like, like Zilla Fatu, obviously, eventually going to hopefully make a debut. But right now, and we're waiting on a return, right? We're waiting on a return of Tangaloa. He's been out. Is it Tangaloa or Tamaloa that's the one that's been out? Currently,
I believe it's Tangaloa's been out. Tamatonga has been out of the picture as well. And actually, fun fact about Hikuleo. I know I'm butchering that, so I apologize. His Haku is his uncle. His cousin is Tangaloa. His brother is Tamatonga. So like you could tie that all in as well because that's all part
So
of
there
the
you go,
family.
Hakaloa. There you go. You said Hakuloa. There you go. That's probably how you say it, right? Because you just gave it up, right? You just said Haku, right? Loa, Hakuloa, right? Maybe that's how you say it. Put
Yeah,
those two
I feel
together.
I'm bad. I feel bad because he's a very talented guy. He was part, I believe, he was part of the Bullet Club in New Japan. I don't follow New Japan
Yes,
as
I know
much.
Jeff Cobb was as well as part of that.
Yeah, so I mean, that would be like maybe this is Jeff Cobb's way of saying, hey, I got somebody for you, Solo, to help us out, and that's there, and then you bring him in.
We got the King and Queen of the Ring matches. The Queen of the Ring match is a little more interesting because it's two brands kind of split in the sense that we got Asuka versus Jade Cargill. They're both on separate brands. Who do we see being the number one contender? Listen, Asuka, I could see her winning the Queen of the Ring. She could use this push to kind of reinvigorate. You know, she's a former world champion. We've seen her there before. But Jade Cargill as well could use this as a platform to get to where she wants to go. Who needs this more? Asuka or Jade Cargill?
Jade definitely needs it more. I feel like at this stage, you know, I mean, it's been one of those things with her. Like, I don't want to say she's been a disappointment because that's not the right word to say it, but like I think a lot of people when she like crossed over from AEW, like everybody thought like, okay, she's going to be the face of the women's division and this and that, and she's not. But she's been consistent. She's been solid. Like it's you name it. She's been steady, but she hasn't been megastar. So I would say she needs it.
I would
But
say Asuka
honestly,
needs it more. And here's what I say. Listen, we have a lot of these, Japanese talent, Io Sky, Kari Sane, Asuka.
wait, you think Asuka needs it more?
I think they need it more because here's the issue. And people have said this before, and I understand fully. With WWE, right? It's all about stories. It's all about how you can essentially put on a good story. And like as I was saying, Kari Sane, Io Sky, and Asuka. With that kind of language barrier, it is very difficult to be able to have the stories like Jade Cargill just had with Naomi, right? No championship on the line, a women's match. It was just about feud, just about, attacks and revenge and retribution. And I think for people like Jade Cargill, it's easier as someone who can speak very, vividly and with the English language without any issue, very fluently,
Yeah.
than it is for some of these Japanese talent because the Japanese talent, as I just said, the fluidity of their English is not the greatest. So being able to tell stories is much more difficult. Now, if they're able to do it in the ring with matches and championships, it's different. That's their kind of how you speak. But I feel like Jade Cargill, like I said, can kind of do things better than Asuka because, like I said, with Asuka, without being a champion, it's difficult for them to have stories that aren't championship related that we, seem to care about. They're never in love interest, you know what I mean? They're never involved in these hit and runs, those kind of things. They can only really tell a story with their athleticism. And we see that with Julia, herself, she tells a story obviously with athleticism. They do kind of have like the translation with Julia that makes it a little bit easier. But am I wrong in saying that it's difficult for them to be able to tell these stories with the language barrier that they have?
Not necessarily. I don't think so because yeah, you mentioned it. You mentioned that like sometimes they put like the captions, like, below it when they speak their native tongue. But Julia can speak the language fairly well. Asuka has come a long way since she came over many years ago. And then Io Sky, I think she does a decent job with it. I think that the way you can do it is you can't have them do like what Cody Rhodes does all the time, which is go out and cut a 10-minute promo. Like that's not going to work.
Yeah.
If you use them, yeah, they're not their English isn't perfect, but when they slow down and they really drive it home and they keep it simple, it's fine. It doesn't bother me one
Well, that's
bit.
the problem though, keeping it simple and having like a compelling story where you're like, I don't even need to see the championship on the line. I just need her in the ring, like Jade Cargill did with Naomi at WrestleMania, right? No championships on the line, but because they were able to both cut very seething promos and they had those kind of things that were involved with, whether it's hitting the person with the car and the friendship breaking up and things like that, things that New Japan does very well when it comes to all these Japanese talent. We've seen it with like Okada and Omega and things like that, but in the United States itself, it's a little more difficult. Because Asuka, like I said, Asuka's never involved in any kind of love interest, right? We're not going to have Asuka being seen in the back with Bianca Belair's husband or Naomi's husband or anything like that. Those just don't seem to work as well with people like Asuka. So championships, being queen of the ring, those kind of things help tell the story of who they are and why they belong a little bit easier.
Here's what I'll say to that too. I think we've gone away from like the love interest anyways, because we don't want to feature women.
No, we have. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, we don't portray them like we used to, and that's a good thing, by the way. That's a great thing. As someone who's myself, I'm a girl dad, so like.
Well, now, like, don't we got Roxanne Perez and Liv Morgan going on here? Don't say we don't do that no more.
We don't do it as often. It's not like but the thing is though, they're not. I don't think they're really in a good way. They're not sexualizing it like they used to.
It doesn't have to be. It could just be, interest, hanging out. Like I said, Roxanne Perez and Liv Morgan are doing it right now. We saw it essentially with Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan when it comes to the affection of Dominic Mysterio.
Anything that's not Dirty Dom, we'll say. Everybody that's not Dirty Dom, I think Dirty Dom's a very unique character where you can get away with the whole love interest thing. But you're not going to. I don't think you're going to see it as frequently. With other characters like we used to, because back in the day, how many times did Vince McMahon use like Trish Stratus or Stacy Keibler, and then obviously we had Edge and Lita as like the live sex thing in the ring and all that stuff back in the day. We're not going to get that kind of stuff anymore. I think I'm glad we don't, because you know what? These female competitors, these women are fantastic, and to be honest, a lot of times I look forward to their matches more than I do the guys. And that's why I'm like,
we're going to have an all women's pay-per-view in less than 2 weeks. So,
exactly. I was just going to say,
an example of that.
Evolution is going to be, I think Evolution is going to be a hell of a pay-per-view, because, there's so much talent in the women's division right now. It makes for a really good show.
The other match for the King Queen of the Ring is the King of the Ring, right? The 24th King of the Ring will be crowned. Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton. Now, kind of as we were just talking, right? The winners go on to SummerSlam for championship matches. With Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes, it seems all but apparent that the winner will go on for the World Championship, which is because they're both a part of Raw, right? So the World Championship is currently held by Gunther, right? So yeah. I don't really know if they're going to stick to this. We'll figure it. We'll find out. But Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton. Someone's going to go on to essentially main event SummerSlam. Last year, right, we saw Solo versus Cody for the championship, and Gunther winning King of the Ring to go up against, at the time, Damian Priest and win the championship. So who's going on to SummerSlam? And I'll just ask you, who are they going to face? Randy or Cody Rhodes? Who do they win, and who do they face?
I mean, honestly, for me, I'd like to run it back with Randy, Randy Orton and Gunther. I think that's a match made in heaven for me. I think it's, Cody Rhodes the same way, but I don't want to say this in a bad way, because I really do enjoy Cody Rhodes. Like, he can't always win all the big matches. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, like, I'm not sick of him. I don't want to put that out there. I enjoy Cody Rhodes. Like, everything he's doing is great, but it's okay for him to lose clean once in a while. Like, I think it's okay to do that. And the perfect guy for him to lose against is Randy Orton. So for me, this might be, not a popular choice, or maybe a choice that, if you were betting on it, the odds are not in my favor. I'm going to go Randy Orton. I think Randy Orton faces Gunther at SummerSlam.
Randy Orton versus Gunther. I'm thinking the same thing too. We'll talk as SummerSlam gets a little bit closer. It's hard to believe it's just about a month away. We only have one PLE between now and then, and that's an all-women's PLE. So when it comes to Randy Orton, Gunther, and all these, this is the final setup to SummerSlam, which is a little bit different than last year, because this King and Queen of the Ring, I think, happened in May. So we had like Money in the Bank, things like that, Clash at the Castle, things happen in between. But this case around, like, it's essentially the next PLE. For whoever wins. Yeah, and I say we'll talk more about it, because, I noticed that with SummerSlam and other events, it's not like the Royal Rumble, and maybe it is somewhat like the Royal Rumble, but the fact that at SummerSlam, I don't think John Cena is going to be in one of his most marquee matches this year. I don't think, like, we're seeing John Cena and CM Punk. We'll talk about that in about 5 seconds, but
Yeah.
That's happening at Night of Champions. I think John Cena and on R-Truth / our Killings, I think that is actually going to be a match at SummerSlam. And I think SummerSlam might be more or less about, similar to what we see with WrestleMania, like multiple championships on the line, multiple things going on where we don't just have one major marquee matchup. I don't think John Cena is going to be involved. I don't think this is going to be one of his major matches, I guess is what to say. It's not going to be him and Randy Orton. We already saw that. It's not going to be him and CM Punk. We're about to see that, right? It's not going to be him and Cody Rhodes. We saw that at Mania. I think it's going to be something where maybe like Randy Orton and Gunther, their championship match is actually spotlighted more, similar to what we saw last year, right? Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa, that was the pseudo main event, but that was a throwaway match. Really, it was Damian Priest versus Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship. That was the more important championship on that card, right? Then it was Cody Rhodes in a formality against Solo Sikoa. That was just used to bring back Roman Reigns kind of thing. So, with that being said, I could definitely see Randy Orton winning this. And either way, even if it's Cody Rhodes, I think him going after Gunther is a much better change of pace than just another match with any of these guys against John Cena. But if we move on to the championship match that is highlighting Night of Champions, and I say this because as we're recording this, CM Punk is coming to the ring in his Chicago Cubs jersey with a chain around his neck, all unbuttoned, and his backwards hat to essentially remind everybody where John Cena started out.
The Doctor of Thugonomics? Is that what he's
and I don't know if you also saw this as well, but in case you're wondering and you didn't catch it, CM Punk has gone full circle, right? There was obviously all the talk about CM Punk making his debut in Saudi Arabia. He was heavily booed this morning at a kickoff for the pay-per-view event, but then got cheered once he formally apologized for the tweet that he made years ago against The Miz. So he apologized to everybody. He's now getting cheered. He's now the good guy again. John Cena, CM Punk, summer of 2025, bringing back the summer of Punk 2011. Yeah. Who is leaving as the champion? Do we see CM Punk becoming the new champion at this event in their final encounter?
Not a chance. I don't see it happening. I think they'll put on a good show. I think it'll be a good show for the fans. This weekend. But yeah, I think Cena's going to retain, and I think he's going to roll in this definitely SummerSlam as the champion. So to me, it'll be a good match. I think it'll be entertaining, and CM Punk will put on a good showing. But I think John Cena is going to walk out as champion and head into SummerSlam as the champ.
How do we do this with CM Punk losing? You know what I mean, and keeping momentum going, because again, he's got a lot of momentum going into this match.
Well, you know what you do.
We just saw the pipe bomb from John Cena. There's like a lot of ways that I just feel like I don't want his steam right now to cool off.
I could see Cena more so doing, the heel Cena stuff that we're seeing of lately, where he does something dirty and CM Punk doesn't lose clean, so to speak. So I think that helps, and that doesn't kill momentum, because I feel like if CM Punk loses clean 1, 2, 3 to a heel Cena, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I feel like CM Punk's going to lose, but I think John Cena's going to do something to do something dirty, almost like a Ric Flair-esque, and win and retain the title.
CM Punk with a few quick lines heading into their match on their final promo, calling John Cena a Timu Macklemore. That's a dated reference right there. Barry's more talent than The Undertaker. And then, talking about, I guess, some relation related to him to Hulk Hogan needing to say his prayers and take his vitamins. It's time to retire. So I guess it's CM Punk's turn. It's interesting nonetheless. I do like this feud. I don't want to say I wish we weren't seeing it at Night of Champions. That's fine. But it does stink, that we're seeing some. This is probably the most interesting John Cena match he is going to face. Randy Orton, that's great. It's going to be a classic. They're going to have a good time. But I think CM Punk and John Cena 2011. That was when I started to when wrestling started. We all started to kind of get out of it a little bit for a second, but then get right back into it when CM Punk left with the title.
I'm going to disagree with you on one point. I think it's a wasted opportunity to do it at Night of Champions. They should have saved this for SummerSlam, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. We all know that, ticket sales, and the way to get some of these people on the card at Night of Champions, they don't really struggle with ticket sales for something like that. So,
Exactly.
no offense to the people, of Saudi Arabia, but, you're going to probably get the crowd, even if this was R-Truth versus John Cena for the championship at
Yeah.
this event, and then CM Punk, at SummerSlam. And again, SummerSlam's a tough one because it's 2 nights, right? So we're going to have at least 12 matches spread out between the 2 nights, between the two of them. But one thing I do want to know that I did notice during the recording of this, obviously, Tiffany Stratton retained her championship against Nia Jax with help of Naomi because Naomi came out, acted like she was going to cash in. And, that kind of
Yeah,
distraction and
of
using the
course.
briefcase helps out Tiffany Stratton. But in that match, there was no Slim Jim tables, just regular tables, and there was a lot of them during that match. And I do have to say, I wish, we talk about money a lot on this show, and we talk about, how, WWE is throws out how much money they make. They just had the greatest show ever in Columbus, Ohio than they've ever had before. Great for them. But this is kind of like, you're kind of jealous. I don't know if we need to have more shows in Saudi Arabia just for this fact, but
Yeah.
if you've seen the SmackDown, and obviously we'll see it for Night of Champions, right? We've never had less advertising than we do when we're in Saudi Arabia, including obviously no Slim Jim ad on the tables. The stage for this event is the largest stage this year outside of WrestleMania for SmackDown and obviously Night of Champions, but let's just say for SmackDown, and they got 25,000 in the place. So there you go, 25,000 and a decent sized stage. And it also just goes to show you that how easy it is to do these things. Because, like, for example, we don't have the LED boards and some of the other accoutrements that we're used to when we see shows in the United States, and probably because it's hard to ship those things over, right? So essentially, Saudi Arabia could go off and say, hey, we don't have the LED boards, we don't have the advertising because it's hard to ship a lot of this overseas. But it's also showing you that even though we are overseas, we can still have tons of pyro. We can still have a huge stage. So
Yeah.
it's kind of the juxtaposition to when you're like, hey, when you're in Philadelphia and the headquarters is only like 200 miles away, and you give us this crappy little set because you're trying to cut cost, but then at the same time you can have this very big elaborate set overseas in Saudi Arabia and like millions of dollars worth of pyro. It really shows you that it's either money talks, and it talks like they don't want to admit in the sense of doing this, or they could just be doing this here in the United States. And listen, we've had this conversation before. It's easy to understand that when they have full crowds that you advertise and try to have like you did at the Intuit Dome for Money in the Bank. That's great. But when it comes to things like this SmackDown, right? If they weren't selling seats in a particular part of the arena, they put up this stage and were able to have a huge stage for it. So it definitely can be done when they want it to be done. So it's definitely something they can do. And I will say one more thing about Saudi Arabia in the sense of every time they go there, they only go to two cities, Riyadh and Jeddah. But they are always going to a new venue every time out, it seems. They're at the Kingdom Arena this time out, which I don't think they've been to the Kingdom Arena before. And it's just strange to me that they keep going back to these two cities, but they don't go to like the same venues. They're always going somewhere new. I know the Jeddah Superdome that they have, I think they've repeated that more than once. But it's like every time they go there, they're at like the King Saudi, King Abdul Stadium for one. Then they're at this indoor stadium. Then they're at this indoor arena because we've seen them go from like soccer-sized stadiums to just big arenas. Like this one, I think, is a big arena. It's called the Kingdom Arena. So they seem to be going to like a different venue every single time. So I don't know if Saudi Arabia or Riyadh and Jeddah just have enough sports that they need this many venues to be built left and right, or they're just showing off their money that they're building new arenas all the time. But and that's just always been one thing I've noticed every time they go there. It's not just like they're going to back-to-back cities, but they're going to Riyadh. You're like, all right, they're going to Riyadh. What's in Riyadh? Where are they going? They're going to the Kingdom Arena. Have they been to the Kingdom Arena before? No, they haven't. Like last time they were in Riyadh, right? They were at the Mohab Abdu Arena. All right, gotcha. Last time they were in Jeddah, they were at the Jeddah Superdome. Okay. Before that, they were in Riyadh at the Mohammed Abdu Arena before that. Before that, they were at the Jeddah Superdome. So some of the same arenas back and forth, but I know that here we go. Marsul Park. they've also been to in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, which is a stadium that's more of a soccer stadium. And so they've been to a bunch of different places. Super Showdown, that was in Riyadh as well, at an arena that they've gone to a few different times. But it seems like they just have a lot of the different stadiums and things going on when they go there. This is the 13th show in Saudi Arabia, which outdoes how many not how many King of the Rings, but how many Night of Champions they've had. They've had 11 Night of Champions, and now they've had 13 shows. So they've been to Saudi Arabia more than they've held the Night of Champions event. And I will say one thing is, and you probably pick up on this as well, when they're in Saudi Arabia in general, they do like to have these events, as you're saying, like Crown Jewel, that kind of highlight the gold moniker, whether it's King of the Ring, right? So they could have been King of the Ring because they've done it there before. Night of Champions, Crown Jewel, those kind of things.
Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Yes. So it really builds up that monarchy kind of theme every time they're there. They're never there for like one night, Vengeance Day or like, something like that. They're never there for, one of those like, Survivor Series or Eliminate. Well, they were actually there for Elimination Chamber. So might I correct myself there? And they're going to be there for Royal Rumble. The next time they're in Riyadh, they'll be there for the Royal Rumble.